I heard from individuals today who are very well educated with degrees. I've heard from individuals who are don't have, as Ms. Reddy was saying, I'm just like anybody else. I don't have all of these degrees. Her experiences, though, are amazing and compelling when you talk about bombing in a home in Austria. All of these statements are very compelling, illustrating the motivation of these people and the sincerity and expertise on these topics. Combined, you probably have much more expertise than most individuals do, particularly in this county, because you've been part of this for 30 years, some of you a little shorter than that. I guess it's simple for me to just declare you committed it and then take a break and have you go to the clerk's office. But after all of this, and particularly with how compelling people have talked about their motivation, it does make me think, particularly Mrs. Rainey talking about what else do we do, and I remember hearing that a long time ago when I was in college at Western, Washington University in Bellingham, dodging townspeople throwing things at us while we marched in the streets. Many of you probably are a little surprised how I would ever become a judge after that. I never was arrested, never was charged, although I have to tell you, in front of the federal building, we all wore hats and sunglasses because we didn't want to be photographed. It's what a lot of people did back then. And there was a lot of discussion of particularly students about what else can we do. Letters didn't work, nothing worked. In this country, there was also a comment from Mrs. Rainey about the media and being caught up in the media and the silly things that the American people get involved in. It wasn't until Walter Cronkite declared, this isn't working. And the American people started saying, it's not working, and finally troops started coming home. But it all started with protests, people walking in the streets. So when you said that, it really did take me back to those days. And I really feel very strongly that there are times when that occurs. And it clashes with what the local and state law is. I mean, that's what this is all about here today. The horror of nuclear weapons, I think everybody agrees. Now, it isn't agreed as to whether we should have them so that other people can't have them. I thought we came a long way when quote, the Cold War ended, but I'm not so sure anymore. We just have a whole lot of little Cold Wars going on with kind of no rhyme or reason as to what's going on in this world. So everything that I've heard rings very true. The question is, and it would be easy for me, I suppose, to just declare there is a higher law and that is the result of the justification and the necessity defense that I would find that you didn't commit the infraction. It's easy to say that. It's not so easy when, after all these years as a judge and taking an oath every 4 years to follow the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution, without ignoring international law, but you recognize that that's a fine line. There are plenty of people in this country that are really opposed to this country reviewing any kind of international law. There are others who speak about the fact that we have a moral duty to make sure international law is followed. It is not an easy task. If it was, you wouldn't be here because you wouldn't have been cited for that. I do care very much about where we are going in this country in terms of the rule of law and the lack of hoping that it does not become personal. I have a real pet peeve of when people say, I really like that judge because he or she decided kind of what we liked. Whether you're a Supreme Court justice or a trial judge, it's real easy to criticize a judge when they do something that you don't like. When they do something wrong, they're no longer an activist judge. They're doing what you want them to do. It is a very, very difficult balancing act as a court these days. And that's why the rule of law is so important. And that's the reason why I spent quite a bit of time yesterday talking about definitions of sidewalks. It is silly to talk about definitions of sidewalks when people may be facing a lot worse than people stepping into the roadway. But the day I throw up my hands to say that is probably the day I take off the road, but I go to one of your meetings. That really is. And probably I'm not quite there yet. My wife would probably ask me, what are you doing? But, and it's not because I don't think the cause is incredibly just. I absolutely believe that you're incredibly motivated to it, and the frustration you have is very, very real. But I do care about the rule of law, and I think I'm going to pass on. There are others that are going to come in. I don't want the system of justice in this country to become so fractionalized to say, depending on where you are, what area, what state, how old you are, how young you are, you're going to make decisions. That's not a system that any of us want to. So, having said all of that, consistent with what the court had determined yesterday, that there has not been a recognition of justification and the necessity defense in this circumstances in terms of stepping out in a roadway violating a state statute that would justify this court finding didn't commit it. I think I do have the ability to mitigate it. Now, the money, obviously, the money's not the issue here. It's a $56 citation. I believe I am compelled today by the oath I took to find that there was a violation of that statute. It's a $56 violation. Yesterday, I reduced it to a $25 citation. I think a question was asked of me, because there's a breakdown on fines, there's 90% that goes to the state and everybody wants the money. And somebody, I think, asked, well, gee, does that mean that the county isn't getting enough? And I basically said, I don't care. I'm going to reduce it to $25. That's what I believe is appropriate under these circumstances. So that's what will happen. Those defendants who are present, I had asked that you at least step into the clerk's office to talk about the ability to pay on that. I have to thank Mr. Backus for being patient. Most infractions are not this way. We're handling them in 5 minutes and 10 minutes, so he has done a lot of work for the state to do what he is sworn to do. Mr. Retzik, you did a fine job of presenting it, and I have to say, I have to thank all of you for having those convictions, but at the same time realizing you're working in this system where we have rules and that you're willing to abide by coming up and testify, abiding by the orders of the court. That has not always been the case with some defendants we have who ignore that. So I appreciate you, and I'm glad we had the ability to give you enough time. I mean, we could have just told you, you have 10 minutes and you're going to do this. I don't think that's what our system is all about. I think it is the ability to give individuals an opportunity to see the system of justice, even when a decision is not what you were hoping was going to happen, but to at least give you an opportunity to explain why you did what resulted in you spending an afternoon here in a courtroom. So having said all of that, I think, Mr. Backus, was there any other issue?
No, no.
Okay, Mr. Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and be at recess, give everybody an opportunity to break, and then those who are here as defendants to check in with the clerk's office. Okay, what will be?